Kum lernen a blatt gemorre. Mitzvah Simchas Torah Daf Kuf Daled Amud Aleph. We are learning about the passing of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. So the very top line, right in the middle line. Ahu Yaim on that day the Noch Nafshi the Rabbi passed away. Gozru Rabbonon Ta'anisa. The rabbis decreed a fast. Ubo Rachmi, and they were asking. They were saying to him. And the Amri, they said, anyone who is going to declare that Noch Nafshi, Rebbe, anybody who's going to inform us that Rebbe passed away, we're going to stab him with a knife. You don't want to hear such news. But more than that, Rabbi Yaakov and wanted to say, the reason why they said that is, so since nobody can inform them that Rebbe passed away, so they couldn't bury him, and therefore they were convinced that the Eibush is not going to let him pass away. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, nobody's going to bury him. So it was part of a ploy. Slika Amse the Rebbe, the maid of Rebbe, went up. We're a Kuv Daled Amud Aleph, about 4 lines from the top. This is still continuing the saga of Yehuda Hanassi passing away. The maid of Rebbe, who was a very knowledgeable woman, went to the roof. Amra, she said, El Yoinim Mevakshas Rebbe. It seems that above they want Rebbe Yehuda Hanassi, but we below want him. Yiratzen, I wish those below should override those above. She noticed how many times a day Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi went to the bathroom. In other words, he had problems with diarrhea and he had all kinds of intestinal problems. He would remove it, tefillin, put it back on. And even though generally if somebody has some strong diarrhea, they wouldn't wear tefillin, as the Gemara says a few times. But Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi was very careful, and therefore he wasn't the issue. But he had to take off tefillin and put it back on, and caused them pain. Now, what exactly is the pain? Just putting it on and taking it off, or is the pain more of I guess, an emotional pain that he constantly had to remove his tefillin? That bothered him. Anyway, she saw that Rabbi Yehuda was a pain. Now she said, "Yiratzon, I wish yachayfu el yoinim esataynim. I wish that those above should win against the below, and will have it. And knows that I wish Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi passes away." But the rabbis continued saying to him, and therefore he wouldn't pass away. Shakla kuza, she took a jug. Shadya me'igra la'ara, she threw it down from above to the ground, and it shattered and made a lot of noise. Ishtiku merachme. For a second, they stopped davening, and that moment, v'noch nafshe de Rebbe passed away. The Ran and the Dorim, and based on this is a whole discussion. She davened that Rebbe should pass away, and she was a very special woman. So obviously what she did was right. So the Ran says you're allowed to daven. If somebody's very sick, you're allowed to daven that they should pass away. And then there's a whole argument, how far do we take that away regarding removing, taking medicines away from a person who was dying, or shutting down the machine, all that kind of stuff is all based on this little Gemara here and the Gemara in the Dar. So the Gemara continues. So what happened? And Rebbe passed away. Meanwhile, the Rabbanah said to Bakapor, Zil Ayin, go have a look how Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi is doing. Are our tefillas working? Ozli went, Ashke, he found the Noch Nafshe, he found that Rebbe passed away. Now he couldn't go back and tell them because he made a vow. So he ripped his clothes, he rent his clothes, the Kriya. They turned around to his back, he didn't want to make it too obvious. He went there and he said the following: at Elim, the Malachim, Umatzukim, and the strong tzaddikim here, they're all grabbing a hold of this holy ark. But I want you to know that not at Elim is Umatzukim. It seems that this time the Malachim won over the tzaddikim here. The Nishba Aron HaKodesh, and the Aron HaKodesh was taken. They said, so Noch Nafshe, they didn't see the Kriya on him. They said, Noch Nafshe, did he pass away? He said to them, after coming to I never said it, you guys said it. So this way he didn't breach the Shvuah. And on the other hand, they were able to say, because nobody told them for a fact, they just surmised. When right before Rebbe passed away, he took his 10 fingers and he faced them upwards. You know, that I worked so hard with my 10 fingers in the Torah, and I did not have any personal pleasure, even the most minimal amount. I wish before you that I should go peaceful in my final resting place. A voice from heaven rang out and said, Yavai Shalom, come come in peace, yanuchu al mishkavaisim, and rest on their, I guess, beds, resting places. Now, why is it plural? He's talking only to one person. Al mishkavcha b'bayla. She said your resting place. What means their resting places? So this supports Misayela Chiva Gamla. This supports a Chiva Gamla. When a tzaddik passes on, tzaddik bloini ba. This great tzaddik is about to enter. So he says to them, Yavoyu tzaddikim. Let all the tzaddikim leave Gan Eden and come and greet this tzaddik. And they all say to this tzaddik, they say, Yavai b'shalom, come with peace. After they said that, these tzaddikim go back to their resting place. That's why it's written in plural. When a tzaddik leaves this world, shalosh kittish malachim shav yetzer cross, there are 3 groups of malachim that come to greet him. One of them says, Ba b'shalom, come in peace. You always went in the straight path. And other one says this passage, come in peace and rest in your resting places. When the Russia leaves this world, the flip side is that 3 groups of the Malachim who are going to punish him go to greet him. One of them says, Ein Shalom, there's no peace. Hashem says to the Shalim, and the other one says, the other one says to him, that should be sad, that in sadness you'll die. But the other one says, the other puzzle says, the day you should go down, you should lie down with all those who are uncircumcised, all those who are blocked. In other words, you're in Russia, and therefore that's where you're going to end up. Okay, next Mishnah. So we're continuing to learn about Amana, her rights, and she can claim mezainas to be provided for, and the Kesuvos. Now there's going to be a difference whether she remains in the husband's property or whether she remains at home. Now she cannot force the Yisraelim to take care of her when she remains at home, but if they agree, no problem. So she remains at home, and they're providing you with food. The question is there a statute of limitations when it comes to the Kesuvos? We say, look, if you haven't claimed your Kesuvos by this and this point, that's it. You forfeit the Kesuvos or not. We have 2 opinions, Rameh and the Chachamim. We know the rule is something about 25 years. We don't know what's the reason behind 25 years elapsed from the death of a husband, and she doesn't claim the Kesuvos, she forfeits the Kesuvos. But we don't know what they did 25 years is. Is it because after 25 years, that means she forgoes the Kesuvos? She's moichel the Kesuvos, that's the reason why. And then we're going to make a difference whether it's in her husband's house that she lives in or in her own family. Or is it because over the years she must have taken things, and given it to other people as gifts and so on. So she accumulated enough presents and everything else that she equivalent amount of her Kesuvos, and therefore as if she got paid out. And again, there's a difference where she's living, as the Mishnah will explain. Tell the Mishnah. She basically, as long as she's living with her family, there's no statute of limitations, and she can always collect her Kesuvos, because according to Rameir, we believe that over the years, the aggregate of all the presents she gave equals her Kesuvos. But if she's not living in her husband's estate, she's living at home, she wouldn't have taken anything, and therefore there's no statute of limitation for Kesuvos. But if she's living in her husband's estate, then he has a cap of 25 years. Within 25 years, definitely should pass a Kesuvos. So surely the cumulative, I guess the aggregate of all the gifts that she gave out would have been equal to her Kesuvos, as if she got paid out. Who says the name of Rav Shimon Gamliel. However, Chachamim say no. It has to do with whether she was meichel, whether there's a statute in Australia, you have a 7-year statute of limitations for debts. So they were giving 25 years. We're being very generous, but that's it. After that, we say you're meichel. So Chachamim say, cold man, she's living in her husband's estate. She can collect the Kesuvos forever. Why? Maybe she's embarrassed to ask for mezainas, being so nice, they're kind to her, they're providing for her all the time. So therefore, the reason why she didn't ask for Kesuvos, not because she's meichel, but because she's embarrassed. But if she's in her father's place, she's not getting any favors from them. If she didn't ask for the Kesuvos within 25 years, that means she forgave them. She can, but if she's in the father's house, she can collect the ksuba. Sorry, go to Olam. But if she is living in her father's house, she only has 25 years. Maybe if she dies, so the Yoshim take over, and now they're given 25 years. Maskidin ksubasa, all they have to do is mention. They don't have to go to court. They just have to tell the orphans, by the way, we're still here, and one day we're going to come and collect that ksuba. And from that day, at esim b'chamesh shanim, we have 25 years. Now the mother, if she's alive, to collect the ksuba, we learned before that she had the amana has to swear that she didn't get paid out by the husband. So it must be talking about a case which she already swore before she died, so that the children can inherit that right. Because if she did not swear yet, the children that inherit a debt that they have to swear for, which they can't, and that means they cannot collect. Says the Gemara, I don't understand the logic in Rameir. You're telling me that over 25 years, if she lives with the husband of the state, the aggregate of all the gifts that she gave would equal the ksuba. So tell me, Aniya Shebi Yisrael, if your husband was very poor, add 25 years is the aggregate of all the presents. Marta Bas Baisis, this very wealthy lady called Marta Bas Baisis, add also 25 years. How is that possible that there's a uniform date of 25 years when it should be really, every person is different? There's a famous saying, according to the camel, that's the kind of package you have. In other words, a poor person gives very small gifts, so the aggregate takes 25 years to accumulate the amount of the ksuba. A wealthy person gives much larger gifts, commensurate to her status, her socio-economic status, and therefore it takes also 25 years to equal the amount on the ksuba. We ask a question, according to Rameh. So according to the rabbis, any 1 day less than 25 years, she can collect the entire ksuba. And then otherwise, she forgoes it. But according to Rameh, the idea is that she's giving away gifts. It takes 25 years to reach the full amount. What happens if she collects the ksuba year number 10? Do we deduct anything from the ksuba because of these gifts that she handed out, or no? Until 25 years, we don't deduct anything. The moment 25 years elapse, she forfeits the entire ksuba. Which way is it? Do we do pro rata or not? Teku, not clear. Chacham say if 25, a day more than 25 years, she forgoes the ksuba. She's meichel. I don't understand the logic. If she comes 1 minute before sunset on the final day of 25 years, she collects her ksuba. But la'achas kizachama, 1 minute later, after the sun sets, like gavia, she doesn't collect the ksuba. Tell me, by he purta achilta, what, in those 2 minutes, that's it, she was meichel? 25 years elapsed, a minute ago, no, but now, yes. Amalei said to him, yes. Call, we already had it previously as well. Call midas chachamim, whenever the chachamim make a ruling, kain he, they're exact. We cannot say, what's the difference, a little bit, an inch here, a millimeter here. For example, we know that you need 40 saw in a mikveh to go to the mikveh. And by boim saw chasa kurtiv, 1 drop is missing, and the mikveh is ineffective. You can argue what's 1 drop. So just like when it comes to measurements, which can be measured, we say that this is the words of Chachamim, and it's not debatable, and this is how it stands, and it's not a fluid thing. So the same thing applies also when the Chachamim make rule about people's mind and how that works. If they said 25 years, it's exactly 25 years, and 1 second later, farfam, too late. Says the Gemara further. Amar Rabbi Yehuda said, Amar Rab named Rab, Heyid Rabbi Shmuel, but Rabbi Yasi, once Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yasi, said before Rabbi, he said the name of his father Rabbi Yasi. Lo yishanu, when do we say this? When is all this said if she does not? When do we say that she forgoes her ksuba? Only if she does not have the document in her hand. If she still retained the document of the ksuba, that even 40 years later, we're going to say she wasn't Michael, because if she was a Michael, she would have ripped up the ksuba. The fact that she still has the ksuba in her hand means she was not Michael. She can always collect. That's the view of Rab. Comes along Rabbi Lazar, and he says, no. Even if she's still holding on to the document, she only has 25 years, and after that we say she was Michael. She didn't bother ripping up the ksuba, but she was Michael. Okay, let's see. Masi ben Absheshes. Absheshes has a question. It says, Bal Chayv is unique that he can collect Shaloi Bahaskara. In Jewish law, if somebody owes you a debt, there is no such thing as a statute of limitations. It can be 40 years later, you can still collect that debt, unless you were, clearly Michael. But otherwise, you have every right to collect it. So said about Chayv, even if he never mentioned the loan for years and years and years, when I guess he caught up with you one day, 40 years later, he can collect. And we're saying about Chayv as opposed to a widow. Now, and a widow, what? A widow cannot collect after 25 years. Now, what's the case here? Hey, what are we talking about? Either Loy Nakash the Bal Chayv does not have any document to corroborate his loan in the Maigavi. On what basis is he collecting them? The other guy says it's not true. Ella the Nakash it must be he's holding on a document. And yet it says here, when do we say there is no statute of limitations? Only by a Bal Chayv. Who the Bal Chayv? Because you don't automatically assume that he was Michael because he had a loss. He personally took out money from his pocket, lent to that person. So therefore, we say as long as we did not hear him utter the words, I am Michael you, we're going to say that, he has a loss, so he has every right to collect it back. But when it comes to Almana, achilta. When it comes to Almana, it seems, even though she has the document in her hand, that she is Michael, which is like Rabbi Lazar, question on Rav. And by Almana, she doesn't really have the same kind of a loss as a lender. A lender took money out of his pocket and lent it to somebody. So now, if you don't get paid back, you have a loss. Almana, the ksuva is all a benefit. It's all like a profit. You didn't invest any money, and therefore, there we are more readily assume that if a long period of time elapsed, she probably was Michael. Anyway, what we see from here is that even if there's a star, otherwise, what's the contrast to Abal Chayv? He asked the question, but then he turned around and he answered. No, maybe Rab is right. The only time we say that she is Michael is if she's not holding a document in her hand. So what's the contrast to Abal Chayv? We're talking about a case here where the borrower says, I know I owe you money, I just didn't have any money to pay you, even though it's 40 years later. So he doesn't need a document. If the borrower admits that he owes the money and the lender is asking the money, you don't need a document, and they're asking a shaila, is there a statute of limitation? The answer is no. But when it comes to an almana, if she has no document, we say 25 years later, she was Michael. But if she still retains the ksuva, she can collect it forevermore. Says the Gemara, but that's another question. You said, grusha or divorcee, harehu kebal chayv. Again, a grusha has the same status about chayv. There's no statute of limitation. She can always collect it. So it's only an almana that we say, because she was taking care of all of these years, so I guess she got something in return. She's prepared to be Michael after 25 years. And again, we're drawing a contrast between a grusha and a chayv as opposed to an almana. Hey, what are you talking about? If it's not holding ksuva, how could the grusha collect? The grusha is holding on to a ksuva, and yet we say that she is not Michael, as opposed to an almana is. So we see that even if the ksuva is in the hand, we still assume after 25 years she was Michael. The grusha is not Michael. Almana is Michael. No, we're talking about here where the husband agrees or admits that he did not pay out the ksuva yet to the divorcee, and if by divorcee we say there's no statute of limitations, by Almana, because she was taken care of and she was provided for mezainis, that she is Michael. Says the Gemara, we're continuing still the discussion about whether you have to have a ksuva in your hand or not. So Nachman, the son of Yitzchak, said in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Koza, son of Koza, the Masnita the Bar Koza, the brises that were studied in the yeshiva Bar Koza, and as follows: Tavak Savasa, if the widow is demanding a ksuva, Harehu Kibet Chila. Then the moment she demands it, we start to count again 25 years. And if she happened to have a ksuva in her hand, then there's no mechila whatsoever, which this supports Rav. Nachman, the son of Chizda, sent a letter to Rav Nachman, the son of Yaakov. Again, we're continuing talking about the same subject, and he asked him the following question: teach me. Are they still arguing if she has the ksuva in her hand? And the Chachamim say that she is moichel after 25 years, even though she still has the ksuva in her hand. Or the discussion Rabban and Rameir is only when there's no ksuva coming in her hand, and the Rabban say she's meichel. But if she has a ksuva in her hand, she's never meichel. And then whichever way you say, maybe halach is me. Who's the halach like the Chacham Rameir? Sholch he answered it back. Kishain star ksuva yitzim etachas the other like Rav, that this whole discussion that we assume she was meichel only if she does not have a ksuva in her hand. Machlekes aber star ksuva yitzim the other, but if she has a ksuva in her hand, goyve ksuva sal she can collect the ksuva forever. The halacha kedibli chacham. The halacha is like the word of the chacham. That has to do with mechila, and that's why the difference between if she's at home, then 25 years she's meichel, but if she's living in her husband's estate because they're so kind to her and take care of her, it doesn't mean that she's meichel. She's just too embarrassed to ask for her ksuva. Kiyosav Dimir, Abdimir came along. Amar Hashem Pazi. He said, "Name of Hashem Pazi, name of Yeshua Levi, name of Bakapora. Lo yishonu elamana Masai." This whole thing over here is only talking about that when we say that 25 years she's meichel, is only the $100 and $200 because that is a law, and she forgoes that. Avol toisefes yeshla, but any additions which is like a gift, she's not meichel that, and there's no statute of limitations for that. However, even the additions, it's all part of the ksuva, and if she's meichel one part of the ksuva, she's meichel the entire ksuva. Rabbi said, everything that's incorporating the ksuva has the same status as the ksuva, and if she forgives the ksuva itself, the $200, then she also forgiven all the additional gifts. Itmanam we learned. Amar Rabba said, Amar Rabhuna, name of Rabhuna, Amar Rav, name of Rav. Lo yishonu elamon Messiah. It's only the $100 and $200. Avol teisefes yeshla, but she is entitled to the extra. This is like the first opinion we have here that she's entitled to the extra. By the name Bakapara. Omar Rabba Rabhuna, Omar Rav Hachi. So Rabhuna here is not ruling. Rabhuna here is ruling not like Rav. So Rav Abba says Rabhuna. Is that what Rav really said? That she only forgoes the $100 or $200, but she's not forgoing the rest. He doesn't agree. Rav does not agree with Rabbi Yecha. Are you trying to silence me by asking me this question? Did Rav really say that? Or are you so pleased with this word that you want to give me a coffee or a drink of l'chaim? I want to silence you because it doesn't make sense. Rabbi Yechanan is right, and I'm sure Rav agrees with Rabbi Yechanan that every part of the ksuva is all part of one. The same ksuva, she's meichel part of it, she's meichel all of it. Says the Gemara, Chamsei de Rav Chia, the mother-in-law of Rav Chia Aricha, Rav Chia, the one who either lived a long life or the one who was tall, and his mother-in-law happened to be also his sister-in-law. Intis achvehave. His mother-in-law was a sister-in-law. He married the daughter of his sister-in-law, but not the daughter of his brother. She must have had a child from a previous marriage, and she married his brother. So now his mother-in-law became his sister-in-law. And then then her husband died, and I guess they chalitza on that, but her husband died, and he inherits his brother, and she is living at her own family. And what he did was, he continued to provide food for her for 25 years, the Beinosha at her family home. Then she says to him, Havli Mazayna, continue giving me Mazaynas. Less lach Mazayna. You're not entitled to Mazaynas because Mazaynas, having to provide food for the widow, is part of the ksuva. But since 25 years elapsed, you're meichel the ksuva, you're also meichel continuation of Mazaynas. So she says, Havli ksuva. If you're not giving mezainis, give him ksuva. It's all gone because 25 years elapsed. She took him to a din Torah before Rabba Bashela. Omar Lei, so Rabba said, tell me, easy gufid of the Heichava. Tell me how this whole thing how we led up to this point. Omar Lei, so he said, I continued to feed her for 25 years while she lived in her family home with her parents. And I swear in your name, he's saying to Rabbi Shela, that I personally carried every day the basket on my shoulder with food to take care of her. So I did the right thing for 25 years. So Rabbi Shela said, in that case, she was not Moichel the Ksuba. She was not Moichel. She's entitled to the Ksuba. Why is that? Amalek, he said to her, what was the reason that Rabbanan said that Kol Man Shiva based Baila, she's living in her husband's estate or her dead husband's estate, she collects it forever, there's no cap, there's no statute of limitation. What's the reason? That means we say, the reason why she never asked for the Kesuvos is she was embarrassed. They were so kind to her, they refused and an offering she's not going to ask. Same thing here. If this guy is schlepping, it's even harder. You have to schlep all the way to her house, bring her food every single day for 25 years. She's way too embarrassed to end this relationship. Say, give him Kesuvos. The late Tova. So therefore, she was never Meichel. Zi lahavla. Go ahead and give her Kesuvos. Loi ashkech. He refused to listen. So Rabbi Shela then made out, there's a special kind of, like, to get the sheriffs involved to seize some property, to pay out whatever he owes. So he wrote a drachta, this kind of document that says we're going to seize the property from you to pay out her Kesuvos. Also came before Rava. This guy came running to another bezin to say he's unhappy. Did you see what happened? Did you see how Rabbi Shela ruled against me? So Rava said, no, he's right. Now, this woman was obviously a Talmud Chacham. Amra, she turned around to Rava and said, okay, so you're ruling now that I'm entitled to this property, and this adrachta is a proper adrachta that you can seize property. So, meanwhile, when all this hassles, time has gone by, and he's continuing to eat the produce of the land. I am entitled to the produce, so I want him to pay me for all the produce that he benefited from since the time of the drachta. She said, he should return to me all the produce that he benefited from the day that the drachta was written until today. Now, even though Rabba personally held that it's not from when you write the drachta that she's entitled to it, but rather after the 30 days of making all the signage about the auction, everything else, or 60 days of the signage. But Rava wasn't really interested in telling her that she's wrong, because it wasn't that relevant in this case. So then Rava said, before we talk about the produce, let me just see this contract, because if the contract is not written correctly, then the whole drachta is worthless. Let me see. Chazi, he saw the Kosovo, was one line missing. And because what happened was the surviving brother had his own properties, and now he inherited from his brother. But which properties are the ones that are encumbered to the Kesuvos? It's only the ones that he inherited from his brother. So on the drachta should have said, we're going to seize the fields that belong to the young man who passed away. But otherwise, the general drachta on all the fields, it's not right, because there's no encumbrance on Shimon's personal fields. It's only on the fields that he took over from his brother. And that line is missing. He saw that because it wasn't written there, that these properties that belong to the deceased, Inun, are the ones that are encumbered to the Kesuvos. They forgot to write that. So Rabbi turned to this woman and said, the drachta was not drafted correctly. So she said, okay, imagine drachta is not here. Forget this document. But when they stopped, the auction was over, and the property was now declared a certain value. We worked out a value. From that day, at least, any produce that he ate from that day onward belongs to me. He said, Hani mili, you're right. Only if there was never a document written, but there's a document written and there was an error in it, less lumba. We do not follow the rule that after the days of announcing the produce belongs to the property is already considered yours. Sorry, because we're relying on the drachta, but the drachta is flawed. She said, but you yourself said, you yourself believe that, let's say, if a lender forgot to write in the contract, I'm lending you this money and all your properties are encumbered. We say it doesn't matter, because we know, we assume that nobody's going to lend money unless he has some kind of security. So even though you didn't write it, it's a mistake. The safer forgot to put it in. Doesn't matter. So same thing here. Rabbi Bashel made an innocent mistake, and he meant the properties that are encumbered, and leave it for be. It should be a good what do you call it, document. Rabbi said, no, Sometimes we say yes, the Sefer made an error, but not in this case. Because the Rabbi Bashel actually made a mistake. He he misunderstood the halacha, and therefore, when he wrote it, he actually meant to write exactly what he wrote. He meant that all the properties are encumbered, and therefore, that kind of mistake we cannot tolerate. When we say Achraj Sefer, there's no mistake happening. He just left it out. He forgot to put it in. But here, he actually made a mistake, and why is that? He thought Hani Bahani. He thought, look, at the end of the day, all the properties belong to Shimon. So it doesn't really matter whether the property that originally was Ruvain's or the property that originally was Shimon's, whatever it is, it's only a certain value, and that value goes to this woman. Mali Mahani. What's the difference? There's a big difference. And the difference is as follows. If you have cunning, sly, unscrupulous, Yisaimim, what they will do is as follows. Zimin the Oslo Mishapko, they'll say to her, okay, here, you can have this field. It's a field that the quality wasn't very good. She thinks now the field belongs to her. She'll invest money and time and effort to improve the field. Then they'll go to Din Torah and they'll say that you say, hey, sorry, we gave you the wrong field because this belongs to our father. This is not from your husband's estate. We're going to give you the other field. And meanwhile, they're going to leave the other field derelict and haven't done anything with it. So they're going to cheat, use the system to get free work and benefit in the property. And then imagine when people will say how the rabbis, were hoodwinked and they didn't take care of this woman. So they'll give her a field and she'll improve it. With the Baila Mikasi and the real field that belongs to her, that belonged to her original husband, is going to leave derelict. It's going to just lie there. And then they'll say to her, then they'll say to her, oh, sorry, it's a mistake. That's your field. And give us back the field that we gave you before, previously. Everybody's going to start murmuring about the Bezdin, how the Bezdin is useless and incompetent and inept and so on and so on. And we're up to now the last parak of Kesuvos. So another week we finished. A beautiful parak we're going to learn. Very nice Gemaras. Okay, have a good one.